more powerful is if we actually used live sacrifices. So now they start getting into some deep shit. And he gets himself, there's a Mexican girl called Sarah who becomes this high priestess. They start dating initially, and then he kind of confesses that he's gay, and then she just becomes like a priestess, his number two side girl.
So did he train her?
Yeah,
where did she come from?
She was already kind of into it, and then he kind of brought her into his beliefs and their rituals, and she was really good at, because she was really popular. She actually went to UT as well, and she was really popular with everyone over there. She was a Mexican girl. She was super smart, apparently, but she was really good at recruiting people and also, like, tricking people to, hey, come with me.
And now you're going to die.
This. Yeah.
Oh.
So she would bring people in. Yeah, so business is pretty good now for these guys, and they're starting to get pretty big.
So they're literally sacrificing people now?
Now they start literally sacrificing people.
For the cartels?
For the cartels. So now we go back to the police investigation into Mark Kilroy. So now Mark has been missing now for, I think it's a few weeks, possibly. And so the police now team up with Mexican law enforcement. And the Mexican law enforcement, like initially, like just the lower echelons, they initially immediately just try to shut it down. They say, "Oh, this guy Mark, yeah, he was involved with drugs, and he probably got himself like, into a whole bunch of trouble." And he's, they just try to shut it down immediately. And so the American police knew that there's something not right here. Like this, they immediately knew who this guy was, and it just didn't seem right. Something was really off. So there's obvious corruption going on, obviously.
Yeah.
So he calls up his friend in the Mexican federal police, and this guy's like a big deal. He's apparently just a short guy. He's like 5 foot tall, but apparently when this guy walks in the room, everyone just like does what he says. He's like the big deal, and he was responsible for taking down a whole bunch of really powerful people, just because he was the man. So he's like fighting corruption, and he was just like a cool guy. The police chief of the American side was like, this guy would never go to a bar. He would never go out to any restaurants because he knew he was constantly a target. They would put something in his food or his drink or whatever.
Wow.
And he was constantly like looking over his shoulder. But he was like a badass though. So initially they can't find a thing. They shake down a bunch of people. They question a bunch of cartel members, like lower end, and they can't find anything. So randomly, while they're in the office, like looking at stuff and trying to, deep dive into this investigation a little further, they run into a guy that the American guy knew who had been in the States and was arrested. And he knew this guy was like fairly well connected with the cartels, but he'd been arrested because there was a drug, what do you call it, like a blockade on a road where they were like searching cars and stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was funny that this kind of brought down, this one incident brought down the whole cartel eventually.
Oh, really?
So it was his belief, because of the rituals that this Adolfo guy was doing, his belief that he couldn't get caught, that he busted straight through this police blockade, just thinking the magic is going to protect me, and it's no worries. So it was because of this, it was because of his belief in this that kind of brought him all down. So obviously he was arrested, like they initially, drove his ass down and got him. Yeah, just to took him down to the station, and this guy was like, what the fuck? So,
don't you know I do witchcraft, bro?
Yeah. Basically, this guy just thought he was literally bulletproof, like he was not going to get caught or anything. So he leads the police back to this ranch in just outside of the town they were in Mexico. And while they were there, they kind of dug up some interesting stuff. There was a bunch of drug, marijuana and all sorts of stuff that they were growing over there, this huge ranch. And this guy was just like started to kind of tell them everything. It's like they found a hut on the property, a little hut. There's like a homestead house. There's a little hut in the back. And when they opened this hut, there's like this putrid smell coming out of there. And the whole place was just littered with this, what they called brujeria, which is witchcraft. They're just like all items of, idols and all sort of paraphernalia. There was like all the witchcraft stuff. And in the middle of the hut was this cauldron, the nyanga. And it was just full of nasty stuff. So while they're on the property, there's this caretaker on the ranch, and they take him in as well for questioning. They go back, and while they're at the police station, the caretaker sees a photo of Mark Kilroy. And he's like, "Oh, I know that kid." And the police are like, well, "Okay, how do you know him?" And he's like, "Oh, we had him at the ranch, tied up in the back of a Suburban of a truck, and I was feeding him, and I helped him, and I untied one of his hands so he could kind of sit up a little bit because he was like lying on his side, and he was saying, yeah, I know that kid." So, boom, they have a lead all of a sudden. So they all jump in the car and they head straight back to the ranch, and they take this
is like
initial
the worst
guy.
spring break story ever. This is like all the nightmares. Like,
Don't
you're
leave
going to
your
get
friends.
drunk and they're going to take your kidneys, like all those stories.
It's like an Eli Roth movie.
Yeah.
Some
All right.
dark shit.
So they're in the car.
So they get this is the first guy they initially arrested, and they ask him about Mark, and this guy just starts just offering up everything. He still believes, I'm not going to get arrested, I'm not going to get charged, I got the magic protecting me, I'm all good.
That's an amazing.
This is great.
Yeah. So he's like, I mean, this is the police. They gave him like he's in handcuffs, and they have him on the ranch, and he's like, I'll be fine, everything's fine.
He's as calm as a Jedi.
Yeah. So he starts taking him back to the ranch, and he said, yeah, there's like all these bodies buried around here. And he just starts pointing them out. There's all the bodies all over there. And they said, okay, where's this Mark guy? And he's like, oh, yeah, I remember we buried him over in the corner there. And he said, you'll see some wire sticking up out of the ground. That's where he is. Ugh. And so they go over to this corner of the land, and sure enough, there's this wire sticking out of the ground. And they're like, what's with the wire? What's that about? And this cartel member says, so Adolfo, they called him the Godfather. He wanted us, after we killed him, he wanted us to run a length of wire through the middle of Mark's spine. And they were going to let him decompose, and he wanted to make a necklace out of this kid's spine.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Yeah, these guys are just.
But they killed
monsters.
him before
They killed him before, right?
Yeah, not before some pretty terrible shit, and we'll get to that in a second.
Go on.
Go on. So here's basically a brief rundown of what happened to Mark while he was taken. So Mark was taken by his abductors to the ranch, where he was tortured and sodomized for hours before being murdered in a human sacrifice ritual.
Oh my god.
He was eventually killed with a machete blow to the back of his head, and then had his brain removed, and it was one of the things that they found in the pot, in the nyanga, in the cauldron. Because what they wanted... and then, obviously he had... I think they amputated his legs as well before they put this wire through him and stuff, just so it was easy to take out afterwards. But there was around him, he was buried with another 14 people who they killed immediately before they killed him.
Wow. 14.
So it was this huge ritual that they did. I don't know what it was for exactly, but what they wanted Mark for, and what they found out after they were talking to the cartel members, is Adolfo wanted to be smarter, and he wanted his cartel members he was working with to increase their intelligence, so they could keep getting away from the cops and all this sort of stuff. So he thought he wanted the brain of someone who was intelligent. So he sent his guys out to these bars around the bars around this area where they knew these college students were coming over.
Oh my god.
And basically they kind of, cased the joint, and then heard through different conversations that Mark was a medical student. And they picked him, and they've been following him the whole time.
Oh, that's creepy.
That is so
just
creepy.
Waiting for the moment. And so when he went off the bridge to go take a piss, they grabbed him. But how they grabbed him initially was like really, really weird too. So they had themselves a cop car, and they had a bunch of uniforms.
Oh, man.
And so they pretended to be cops, and they were just like, "Hey, you're coming with us." And being just like he was a good kid, by all accounts. He was just like, "Oh, I'm sorry, okay, I'll come with you." And basically they just took him. There was a story that they told where they stopped for a second, they had him in the back of the car, just sitting in the back seat, and he jumped out of the car and started running. And he was like really close to where all the population was. Like all he had to do was like get through.
Oh my God.
I don't know how close he was, but he was almost there. And they told him he still thought they were police. They told him freeze, and he stopped. And that's when they grabbed him again, because he thought, "Oh, I'm just in trouble with the police, I'll work it out." But he didn't realize like what the fuck was happening.
Oh. Well, I hope him and his family got justice.
Well, yeah, I mean, so, and here's how much the I guess the Mexican people, the culture, believe in this so much. The police who then started to go after that cartel in particular got themselves a bruja. A bruju, I guess, is
Bruja.
the male version of it.
Oh, bruju is the male version?
Yeah, I don't know. I heard different pronunciations, and obviously my Spanish is terrible. But they got themselves a witch to help them and protect them from the evil that this other clown was doing. Mm-hmm. And basically this brujo told the police to go to the hut and burn it down to the ground and make sure it's on the news and just blast it everywhere. And they want to show this guy that we're taking down your power. This is his temple that we're burning to the ground. We're gonna just like cut him off at the knees as far as his magic power goes. This is what the bruja was telling him. So sure enough, the police go back to the hut, and they get their bruja to covers it all in gasoline, lights it on fire, and the whole news cameras and everything are just filming this thing live, and it's on all the TVs, and they're just watching it burn to the ground. So after that, and it really did work, which is interesting in a way. So Adolfo is sitting with his boyfriend in his like $1 million like apartment somewhere in the middle of Mexico City or something like that. He sees it on TV and he starts flipping out. Like he just goes insane. He starts throwing shit through the windows and just like throwing like money out the window and starts burning money on the stove and just like starts a fire in the middle of his... Because he has
to make more sacrifices to please whatever demon he has been appeasing.
Yeah, it's like this, they just literally like cut off his supply all of a sudden, or whatever it was, that this magic he thought was like he was imbuing people with. So he freaks out and he starts making a mess, starts a fire, starts throwing shit out the windows, and it causes such a ruckus that people start noticing, obviously, and they call the police. Mm-hmm. The police go to his place and they find him. Huge shootout ensues, and he's like got a few people there, and the police are like shooting, and they're shooting back, and there's like this whole battle that happens. So while they're in there, Adolfo says to his boyfriend, I don't want to have these guys take me alive. I need you to kill me. So he has his boyfriend shoot him. This is the Mexican police, federal police. This is their official story.
Okay.
So he basically his boyfriend shoots him, and then the boyfriend kills himself.
How romantic.
So, yeah, really. And so the last piece of the story is the U.S. police detective who was like running the case the whole time. He went to go see Adolfo and the boyfriend in the morgue afterwards. And he was like, this was not like a mercy killing. This was not like shoot him in the head. They were both riddled with bullets. So he was saying, obviously someone within the police department or whoever took him in was like, these guys aren't getting out alive to talk about what they've been doing. Just take them out.
Right.
Wow.
So yeah, although dead. So yeah, pretty dark stuff.
Wow.
Not really a happy ending for anyone involved.
No, it's an interesting case about witchcraft. The one thing, that parallel that we talked about before, going back to the ritual, is the random torture. before you kill someone. It seems to be like an important part of all these rituals to elicit that fear, to try to get that response out of them. There's even a term for something happens to you when you get really scared.
It's the adrenaline that starts running through your bloodstream, basically.
And apparently that is what they want to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
The fear is important before you die, which is just the most twisted shit of all time.
That emotion is just like
just kill me, man. Don't torture me. Like, if you're going to do something crazy,